package in the mail, MS sex games from Japan. Collecting without fail those shoot 'em ups, that's the plan. He doesn't just collect them, he also codes them too. Join us and we'll go on electric adventures with you.
Hey YouTube, Electric Adventures here with my channel update and vlog for March 2020. The months are going by quickly, as they always do. First and foremost, obviously the whole world is gripped under this nasty COVID-19 virus situation, which seems to continue to get worse from day to day, and I truly wish that everybody out there is safe, doing the right thing, and staying isolated, doing everything they can to prevent the spread of the virus. And that and if you have unfortunately contracted the virus, that hopefully you are being treated and are on the road to recovery, or hopefully even recovered. I am actually very lucky with where I live in the world, so I'm in Tasmania, Australia. We'll put up some maps over here, and our Premier, that's our leader of political thing down here. Yes, so we have closed the moat, so closed entry into Tasmania from Australia and cruise ships and everything like that. So nobody in and nobody out. I mean, you still can travel, but if anybody arrives here, they get put into mandatory quarantine. They don't get to choose where they go with that anymore either. That is actually state-provided quarantine to make sure people abide by it. And we have very strict lockdown orders. So basically, you're not supposed to leave your house unless you're either need to go out and get essential supplies, you're still going to work or school, you are allowed to go out and exercise, but only in either your local family group, or at worst, if you do meet up with somebody else, it can only be one other person. And of course, if you need to seek medical attention. So no other reasons allowed, and hopefully it will work. I mean, we have, as of recording this video, only 69 cases in the entire state of Tasmania. We have had, unfortunately, 2 deaths. Both of those people were passengers on a cruise ship that arrived in Sydney a couple of weeks ago and had quite a lot of infected people on. And actually, I think half of those 69 cases were people from that cruise ship. So hopefully at this early stage we don't have community transmission, and it can be controlled. They're doing aggressive contact tracing, and they're increasing testing of contacts to make sure they haven't missed anything. There is a little pocket up in the north of Tasmania in Devonport where they believe they may have had a couple of community cases, so they're extending the testing and doing isolation. So we're lucky, because obviously there was quite a lead time between when the virus broke out and when it arrived down here. So the measures that have been put in place in Australia, Tasmania has followed all of those, and because we're that little bit further away, even though we do get a lot of international visitors because of all the cruise ships that did come here in the past, we've managed to contain it so far. And it is good because we don't have a huge population, and we also don't have a large number of hospital beds and things like that as well. Both my wife and my number 3 daughter are nurses. The number 3 daughter is a nurse in training, so they fully understand the situation. My wife has been working a lot. Myself, the company that I work for is very much tourism and entertainment based, so they are pretty much shut down. I am lucky to be part of the skeleton IT staff, but even so I'm only working half a role. So it's very interesting. So I've actually been working from home for the last 2 weeks, but I've been very busy because I have been basically shutting things down and putting things into a state so they can run with a little or no attention, and then hopefully be brought back alive when things start up again. And this is once again a good hope that perhaps here in Tasmania, if we stay isolated, from the rest of Australia, we can contain the virus and then we can relax some of the local restrictions anywhere from 4, 6 or 8 weeks time from now. So we might in a way be a little bit lucky in that respect, and then some of the local businesses here will be able to open again and people will be able to go back to work and things like that. But we'll have to keep the moat closed for quite a considerable time, because I'm sure there is going to be quite a reasonable bit of community spread in mainland Australia. That's pretty much unavoidable now by the looks of it. So it's going to take longer to dampen down in Australia, and then obviously in other parts of the world it's going to take time to dampen down. So pretty much everybody in the world is going to have to get used to living like this for quite a period of time until there is a vaccine. Otherwise, more people are going to die that didn't need to die. So, my heart goes out to anybody who has already lost somebody due to the virus. And I'm sure, unfortunately, more people are. But the more people we can prevent, the better. So anyway, let's get on to more interesting things as far as us retro gamers is concerned. Let's get back to the normal items I cover in this video. So, other pickups. Now, actually, I haven't been out and things like that, but I have had a couple of, I've had one thing arrive and another thing that I bought. Only yesterday, so it only just falls inside the month. So the thing that arrived early in the month. It has not left, I haven't done anything with it yet. So it's a little upgrade kit. You can see it there. So it's for a Tato Space Invaders, because I have an original Tato Space Invaders cocktail cabinet, which is almost working. I've had the board repaired, the screen works. I've just have to replace a couple of components on the original power supply. Failing that, I will swap it over to another power supply, but I'm trying to make the machine as original as possible. And I thought as added, because I would like to keep the machine, and just having a Space Invaders cocktail would get a little boring after a little while. So I got this high score saver kit. Now the really good thing about this high score saver kit is that it helps the actual. It's a ROM saver as well, so you don't actually need the ROMs on the original board, and ROMs are something that fail on original boards. Quite often they lose the information on it, gets corrupted, and also they make the board use more power. So by having one of these things, you not only get the opportunity to save your high score and have free play enabled without having to muck around with your wiring or settings on your board, but it can save your high score, and it can also save your ROMs and the amount of power going through the board, which will make the board last longer. Now, as an added bonus, because it replaces the ROMs, it also comes with 7 other games, all based on the Space Invaders hardware. Well, I haven't played some of these. So you've got Space Invaders Deluxe. You've got Jata Spectre, which is pretty much Space Invaders with a different name. You have Lunar Rescue. That's actually a particular favourite of mine from back in the day. I actually wrote a version of that for the original Spectravideo and MSX machines as well, and I used to play it in the arcades. It's actually quite a good fun game. It just has that little bit more added game complexity over Space Invaders. Space Laser, not as familiar with that one. I've never played that one. As I said, I will try and show some screenshots of these all up here as well. And then we have Balloon Bomber. Bit of a, once again, quite a different game. Then Galaxy Wars, which is not a too bad game. You're basically controlling a missile, and you've got to get through past other objects and try and hit the ones up the top. And then Super Earth Invasion, which is basically Space Invaders again, but with different graphics. So I'm not saying I would play all of those 8 games on a regular basis, but there are probably a couple of those games that I'll enjoy switching to and playing, so it'll add more variety to the cocktail cabinet, and it'll be so nice getting it. It's just here, you can just see it in the corner there. Get it all cleaned up in its original form. It's got the original cellophane on it with the different coloured layers, and it'll just be a really nice way to round out the game room in my arcade lineup. So I thought it was worth getting that, and also that might actually help keep my board stable over a long period of time as well. But I haven't done anything with it because I haven't fixed the power supply. But maybe in this time where I'm having half days off, I'll be able to spend a bit more time in this room, Not necessarily every day. I would like to do some other stuff around the house as well, because it is technically half of the day is my holidays. So I will be doing some renovations to the room as well. So this area where I sit here, the couch is going to stay here, but I have a display here. Okay, we'll cut to a little bit here where I'll just show you what I mean, what I'm going to do with changing the game room around. Right, currently this is where I sit and record. So the couch here, I've got this little coffee table thing that has a PC in it embedded for doing my captures and camera. And then we have where all my consoles are. Now these is a bit of a mishmash of various cubes and this movable unit that the monitor sits on. And then sitting on top of that I have a little shelf and then all my CD based games. So what I'm going to do is, using a new piece of wood, I'm going to mount this shelf a little higher and actually to the wall, so it's not actually sitting on top of everything. And then I'm going to build a console that'll actually make the TV a little higher, which will help. It's actually a little too low at the moment. And it'll have, in general, 3 shelves, so and be 4 wide, so it'll be 4 by 3, which is only 12 areas, but I'll be able to fit more than one console in each area. So that'll replace this step going up here and even this little bit up here, and we'll neaten all that up. I'll be able to have all of the cables a little bit better managed as well, and this TV here will sit on top of the unit. And then also the Yamaha equipment that I picked up locally cheap, which is pretty much brand new, never been used. I'll be able to set the 2 speakers to either side of the TV, and there still will be space as well. And the stereo will be able to be down in there, so I can actually get some decent proper sound. And it might tidy up some of this where I have consoles that I'm getting in and out all the time. They'll be able to stay in there rather than me having to bring them out to play them. And just hoping it'll neaten it all up, and then eventually I'd like to get some glass doors. Now what material am I going to build it out of? I'm going to build it out of white melamine. Now I've got the tools to drill all the holes so the shelves are adjustable and everything like that, so I've just got the base materials. That makes it cheaper, and I have the material here so I can slowly start working on it. Obviously one of the first steps is, unfortunately, I have to take apart this entire area which is going to take a bit of work. But I'll try and take some pictures and stuff like that as I go, so we can do a little bit of a transformation over time, but it's going to take me a little bit of time to do, but we'll see how we go. And I just want to get all this, because this side always looks like it's a mess, so I want to get it neatened up. And then gradually around the rest of the room I'm going to replace some of the shelves to make it more consistent and just make things display better, because I have slowed down in the actual items that I'm buying. I'm only really supplementing my collection here and there, because I have so many items. I just want to be able to see them, get access to them better, and play more of them easier. Alright, back to me. Alright, I hope you enjoyed that look at what I've got planned. It's probably going to take me a little while because I've got to move a lot of stuff, do a bit of cutting and things like that, but once I get started hopefully it won't take me too long. Also depends on whether the weather changes and it starts raining and things like that as well. Now I did get one other pickup. I've only had it a couple of days, and it's because I had to fix a business that I've looked after for like 30 years, computer and their remote access and everything like that. And I was picking up some bits and pieces for them, and they had this graphics card. Now this graphics, most of my actual desktop machines don't have very special graphic cards on them, so I don't really play games on my desktops, but there have been quite a few games that I've got on Good Old Games and a few Humble Bundles that I wouldn't have minded to play, but none of my machine's graphics cards have been fast enough. So I bought the cheapest one that I could that had enough graphics power that would do. So I don't know anything about the specific specs, but it's a Radeon RX 570. It actually has 4 connectors on the back, so technically it can run 4 monitors. So it's got 1 HDMI and 3 display ports. I've got it hooked up running too. It's got 4 gig of system memory. Oh no, it needs 4 gig of system memory. I was just telling you the requirements, how much memory has it actually got. Who knows? Gaming 4G. Anyway, 4 gigabyte. There you go. 256-bit. PCIe 3 at 16 times. And because I had a server here, which was quite a high spec i7 machine with 32 gigs of RAM, with fast RAM, an SSD boot. I don't really need a server. I had a corrupted hard drive, and I was going, I don't really want to build that server again. So I've turned, and since I'm working from home all the time, normally I use laptops and things like that, but if you've got a machine sitting there at a desk all the time, I thought, well, why not? I'm going to make a proper desktop machine for once. So I've used that i7, added that graphics card, and that will allow me to play a bit of a backlog of the games. I'm not talking about games that have come out anytime recently, but still that graphics card should do for me to play some games that have come out, probably in the last, even up to 5 years ago. There are games that I haven't played. And I've just had an itching I want to spend some of my downtime playing some RPGs and things like that. So, is it Pillars of Eternity or something like that? Is one that came out on Good Old Games recently that I'd like to give a go. So, don't really have that much more to talk about this month, but I will briefly cover off my homebrew developments. I have actually made a lot of progress, and this is before I had the period of having to do all this extra work to turn things off at my work. So Cavern Fighter for the ColecoVision, I think I gave a brief update last month. That now runs on a stock ColecoVision, so it doesn't need the Super Game module. I managed to rearrange things a little bit and save some more bytes of RAM. It has had a bit of beta testing, and I've got a little bit of feedback from that. In winding it back, the sound is probably now a bit too simple, so I need to improve some of the sounds, and maybe add some animations that have been suggested for a couple of the exposure things, but that one is really close and almost finished. And another one that is so close now is my conversion of Berserk for the ColecoVision. Also will run on the stock standard ColecoVision. It has voice, it has sound effects, the player moves, player shoots, player can die running into walls, the robots are placed, the robots move and they stop and start moving based on where the player is, and they also now shoot. I have basically a little bit of tweaking to make the robots' actions and how often they shoot and everything like that more like the arcade game. Stephen Cameron, who did most of the graphics conversion for me, so Cameron Graphics, has supplied me with a nice title screen logo that I need to add in. And other than that, I need to add in probably a couple of options and things like that for, although there's not that many difficulty settings I can provide with the game, but just a couple of options and we'll tidy up there, and then that one could go to beta testing. So I am pretty much assuming that in about a week's time both Cavern Fighter and Berserk, since I'll be spending some of my holiday afternoons working on the games, that will pretty much get those closed off and off for final beta testing. And then finally, after all this time, I'll be back on to be able to spend and focus more concentration on Sydney Hunter and the Caverns of Death for the NES, which of course I have pushed off to one side for quite some time due to previous health problems and all this sort of things of having a busy life. But I would really like to get that one finished. It is so close. All 10 levels are actually in there. They all fit in the ROM. I have a couple more object placements to do on some of the later levels and some of the puzzles to finish off, and then just a bit of debugging and testing, just to make sure that I'm not completely happy with his jump arc, that it matches the Super Nintendo version. And I do still need to do the animation when Sydney climbs up the ropes as well. But there really is only little things now. All of the music's working. There isn't any sound effects for that yet, so I may have to look at adding some sound effects just for the all we really need is a jump and maybe a sound when the boomerang hits one of the enemies or something like that. But yeah, a little bit of sound effects would be good. So progress and COVID situation, I'll actually have time to actually do some of these things. So maybe, as a lot of us I think will find over the next few months, priorities change and some things become more important, and maybe, you know, it is about time everybody took a pause and reassessed how we spend our lives sometimes, because yes, sometimes it takes the fast-moving train to stop, so you can stop and have a look around and smell the roses, as they say, and you know, maybe decide to make a change for the better overall. So I truly hope that the world can, you know, or believe the world will recover from this situation, but it's definitely going to be a different world we'll be living in the future. And I also hope that, you know, some of these nasty curves start flattening for all of the countries out there as soon as possible. Alright, so I'm Electric Adventures, from my game room to yours. I hope everybody out there is well and looking after themselves, and I'll catch you next time.